to all the IT students wanting to do an IT PAT, a practical assessment task. Here is a tip or an idea that you could use for your PAT. Again, something I would use more at the end of your PAT once you've done all the basics. This is a nice extra feature to have. I'm going to show you a new component called a TChart. Now, we've done a video where we showed how we can graph data. It's quite a technical video and quite convoluted. It's not really the ideal way to do charts using shapes, for example, or other types of components. There's an actual specific component which is better suited for charts or for graphs, and we're going to show you how to do that and use your data from a database to populate a chart. Okay, so let's first find out where this chart is. I don't know where it is. I'm going to search for it. I know it's called a TChart. So if I type in TChart there we go. On the TChart standard. There we go. I can click on that, add it, boom. And so there's my TChart. So that's what it's going to be. That's the component. Now, it is quite technical how to use it, now to change the properties of it, especially when the code is being run. So first of all, if you double click on a chart, you will probably get to these little settings like this, editing the chart details. So for the example, the chart, you can change the axes. For each particular axis, you can put values in, the minimum value and stuff like that. You can put a title for that particular axis. There's quite a few like properties and sub-properties for a chart. So that's the axes. The title, maybe you want to change the title, its position, what the text is and stuff like that, the color of the text. So there's a lot that you can do with all of these different parts of a chart. The legend is obviously the key on the side, which tells you what each value and what each color is and stuff like that. And there's the data and all that. So there's lots of information here that you can change. But before we start with all that, we actually need to give it so let's just do that. We need to give it a series that it needs. So you're going to add a series. And so we're going to start off with just a simple line. Let's just do that. It's a little line chart that we're going to add. And you get all these different options. You can make them 3D or smooth. You can see what they look like with the smooth, or you can look at, for example, take away the 3D options. You can run straight, example, like something like that, where it's just straight lines. You can do something along those lines. It's up to you. I'm going to pick this one, and I'm going to click a line option. So there we go. So I've got one line. So that would represent, if you look there, you can see one line is already on. If you think you can have multiple lines, then you're going to need to add multiple series. And that will be, this is series 0, and then the next one will be series 1 and so on. And you can specify, once you've got a series on there, you can actually, if you click on that series 1, you can actually go to the properties of it. You can change its color. You can change little details about it. You can add what the points look like and so on. So you can do all these different options that are available to you. So those are the types of things you can use. I'm going to have one for now, and let's play around with that one particular one. So I've added one. It adds random data, but when we run it, it doesn't actually show anything. Oh, before we even get to the code, what I've done is I've actually changed the name of it quickly. So there's the name of the chart. It's CHT is a good prefix, line chart. So that's my chart that I'm going to use. And so let's get to the code. Yeah, so here we've got the code where we want to write details about this line. So let's first of all, you want a good, for example, you want to change the title of that particular chart. You can see it says TChart there. So we want to change the title of it using code, because obviously you're going to be doing a lot of the populating of the chart with code from the runtime, not from the design time. So it's CHT. So we got the line chart dot the title. There's a title field, and we want to change its caption to whatever we want to call it. This is example 1, for example. Maybe we want it to be example 1. So that'll change the actual title of the chart. So that little value there will change. And so now we want to maybe start giving it some values. We want to actually plot some data points. So to do that, we obviously can do lots of things with, so I'm going to use the CHT line chart with clause. So we can do multiple things. So this is the end of my width. And to do it, so basically what you're doing is you're doing that particular name of the component, and you can add an XY value. Add an XY. Okay, so what does it look like? Actually, that's not correct. It's going to be the series, because obviously you got different series. So which series are we dealing with? Well, our series is like arrays. The first series is series 0 dot, and then you have options to add all these different options. We're going to add XY values. So there we go. So the XY values, if you think about it, these are going to be the X values, and that's going to be the Y values. So if we do that, so let's say the first thing we need, if you look at the options there, when we go open brackets, we need the X value, we need the Y value, we need if there's a label for it, and then we need a color for it. So I'm going to just give it some random numbers. I'm going to go 10, let's say 35. Okay. And then I'm not going to worry about a label for it for now, but then a color. Now you can specify the default color, which is just D-color. If you do that, I think it will specify whatever the default color that's been already. You can see this one's already red, so it'll just use that default color. So that plots 1 point. So I'm going to go ahead and plot a couple more points, and I'm basically going to change the X value incrementally. So like 10, 20, 30, and so on. So it goes up, and then that value I'll just give random numbers, for example. So let's try that out. So I went again and populated there. You can see I went up in increments of 5 and just put a whole bunch of random numbers there. And now we can run it and see what it looks like. So there you can see the chart is just empty. And when we click on the button, you can see that the label or the title has been updated. And there you can see it goes from 10 or 35 up until 70. It adapts the axes to whatever your values are. And then we can see it goes incrementally up a little bit by a little bit by a little bit. And then it drops straight down to from 59 to 42. So you can see it's plotting the chart quite nicely. So there we go. So that's how it's working. I would probably make that value a bit higher so that it looks a bit better. But there we go. So you get the idea of how that chart works. Now, if I want to add another series, then obviously you can double click on here and we can go add another series. Just a reminder as well, with your axes, you can actually set the max and the min value here as well. So it automatically does it based on the data that you have got in. But we want to add another series. So I'm going to add another one. And we also want it to be aligned. You can actually add very different charts all in one if you want. I'm going to add aligned just because it looks better. And there we go. So now I've got another series. It's called series 3, for example. Now we've got a legend there telling me all the details of which line means what. So I want to actually change those values to say, hey, the red line represents this and the green line represents that. So you can do that type of thing. So let's go do that. And you can change the color as well at the particular design time, for example. So we could actually say, hey, this series, so chart dot the series. Let me just get to the color. So this particular series, the first one, which is 0, that dot, I think there's a color property. Is there a color property? Color, there we go. So color, we don't want it, the first one to be red. We can say this one must be CL green. And we want the second one, because we got another one now. So that one would be the series 1. I know it's got a different name, but that's the first series, that's the second series. And this one, we want this one to be, I don't know, alarm. We can use the CL alarm. So there we go. Those are the two colors. And then we can plot the values. So we can do something very similar to this. But actually, we don't need to copy all that. We can just copy that. And we can now plot the series 1 values and give it a whole bunch of random numbers. I'm going to go ahead and do that ahead of time. So there we go. I'll wait to populate some values. Just got to look at what it looks like when I run it. So we've got 2 series now. So one, we should expect the one now. The one should be green and the one should be lime. There we go. So there you can see our lime one. It goes like that. So it's all random where the green one is more consistent. So we were able to change, even though we said CLT color, it's whatever color we set it to at this point or where you set it when you created the options. And we don't like that word series that appeared over there. We don't like that particular thing. So let's change that. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to change it by saying whatever the charts dot series, not dot series. I could have been doing this inside this width part. It would have been easier, but I'm just showing you the different settings that you can change. Series, the first one, I think it's dot title, if I remember correctly. Dot title is equal to whatever the text is for this particular one. So let's say this one was the, I don't know, let's say it was the tortoise. It's the rate of the tortoise. I don't know how to spell tortoise. How do you spell tortoise? I think that's how you spell tortoise. And the other one was the hare. It's the rate of the tortoise and the hare. So this is the second title for the other one. And we'll make this the hare or the rabbit. Okay, so that's what you can do. And we can run it. Let's see what it does. There we go. We can see our data is populated quite nicely there. And the other thing, you can actually put labels on the sides and all that via code as well. If we go here and we say, okay, the chart. Now this is to do with the whole chart, not with a particular series, but we can say the left axis. If you want the left axis, you want to change its title. Now that doesn't, it's not, you can't just change it like the one above. You've got to say the caption of it equals. Let's pretend that was the graph of time, for example. So you could do something like that. And then you can set your particular chart. So there we go. We can see our left axis as a time value. You can see what the time is. Well, actually, that should have been the time at the bottom, but you get the idea. So our bottom axis could have done that. So that's how you can change the settings of it. Okay, so let's go try another chart now. So yeah, I've got another one. I've added another TChart, and now when I double click on it, I'm going to actually make this into a pie chart. I've called it a T pie chart. So we're going to go to series. I'm going to add a series, and I want this to be a pie chart, and I don't want it to be 3D. Let's keep it like that. So we can do that. So there we go. We've got a nice little pie chart. So there's, it just puts random stuff in. That's what it's going to look like. So let's populate the pie chart. So for this one, just ignore all this. This is for my next example. But for this one, what do we want to do? Well, first of all, we can say with the CHT pie chart dot, we can maybe do that series here already. That might save me a bit of time. There's only one series. So series 0 do, what are we doing? Well, we're going to say, okay, we're going to, in this case, we're not adding X, Y's. We're just going to add a particular value. We can just add a value. So you add a value, you can give it a string of what that represents, and then a color. So we can give it like a random color. So we can say add like the value of 40, and this represents the pencils, for example. And we can say this is CL red. So we can give it a nice little color. We can do that a couple of times. So I'm going to do that a couple of times, and then we can just change these values. So this one was 70, and let's make that 120. And this is pencils. These are pens. And this is, I don't know, ribbons. I don't know. So we can do something along those lines, okay? We can give our chart a nice little title. So you can go and say the chart for the pie dot title dot caption. Create.caption. You can say this is stationary, whatever you want to call it. So that's how you would do a pie chart. You don't need to add X, Y's because obviously you're not plotting along an X and Y graph. You can just add it like that. And if we run it, we can see what it's going to look like with a pie chart. And then we'll do an example where we actually get values from a database and how we can plot stuff from a database. There we go. It's running. And so when I click on populate, there's our lovely little chart part. Okay, well, the problem is that we made them all CL red. It would probably be good if we made those different colors. CL red, CL green. So that will make it a lot nicer to look at. So obviously with different colors, we can get different schemes. There we go. That looks a bit more respectful. So there we go. You see the little labels. You can see a nice little showing, got a nice little legend on the side, nice little label. So that's how we use a pie chart. So how can we use this with our database? So there we go. So first of all, the colors is a thing. So what I like to do, one way of changing the colors instead of like trying to figure out how you want to do this, because you might use like, for example, an array that's going to populate all the values. So I've got it, like, let's say what I've done right at the top is I've actually got the different categories of things in a database based on the different categories. So there's the 5 different categories. That's why we've got an array from 1 to 5. So I've got an array that tells me what the categories are, and I'm going to plot how many of each category there are based in the value. So position 1 of this value arrays is going to relate to all the game values, and position 2 will be the input and so on. I should probably make that global, but it's fine. And actually going to have an array's colors, which I'm going to use. So this is of type T color, you'll see. So I'm just going to set values for it automatically. I can say this one is equal to CL red. And then you just do that a couple of times. And you just give it different values. So we need 5 values in total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we want CL red. You can think of some color. What else do we want? We want CL yellow, CL green, CL blue. And what else do we do? CL, I think there's a purple. Is there purple? Yeah, we'll do CL purple. There we go. So there's our 5 colors. Okay. So now that we've set our colors, let's go. So first of all, we want to initialize our values. We want to set them all to 0 because we are, in case we click on this button multiple times. So it's always good to, when you're counting things, to initialize your count. And in this case, it's an array of counts. So there are 5 of them. So we want 5 values, and we're going to say array values are all equal to 0. Now that they're all, not array zeros, values, array zeros are, values are is equal to 0. So each one is equal to 0. There we go. Now that we've initialized all of them, now let's go through the table. Now my ADO items, I haven't got a data module, it's just straight away like this. It's on this form just to save time. While not TBL items dot end of file. And this is our algorithm to go through all the values in a database. If you remember correctly by now, you should be doing this in your sleep by now. And all I'm doing is if the value, the value from TBL items, if the value from the category, I know what the database looks like already. So there's a category field. If that category matches, we just can do for item number 1, for the first one, which is the game one. So if that equals to category position 1, so which is array category position 1. If that's the same as that, then we want to increase our array value at position 1, if that makes sense, because that's the value for all the ones at the category. So that's what we're technically doing, array values, I think it is. Now that will only do that, obviously, for the first category, which is the game field. So what happens if I want to do it for all of them? Well, then I can just do a loop that goes from 1 till 5, because there are 5 categories, and for each of the categories, each one, so this is the begin and this is the end of that loop, end of the for loop. For each of the, when it's category 1, go check for category 1. When it's category 2, check for category 2, and you're going to increase position 2 of the category. So I'm actually just changing this to an R variable. So when it's a 1, we'll do the game category. When it's a 2, it'll go look at the, which is the second category, the input category. If it matches the input, it'll go change the second position in array values, increase it by 1. So this will tell me how many the inputs there are, how many outputs there are, how many games there are, how many tablets there are, and so on. So that will do the population of the array values with numbers that I can now chart. Now that I've got that, now that's got nothing to do with chart. Now we can actually get to the chart part where we will say, hey, my pie chart, I want to go put all this information into my pie chart, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to do that. So okay, with the pie chart, we want to obviously give it a nice little title. So title dot caption equals, what are we going to say? Categories. How do you spell categories? It's long, like that. Okay, categories. And we want to get rid of whatever's in the pie chart. So let's first make sure that that series doesn't have other values, because we're not going to add to it. So series dot clear. Yes, clear. So we want to clear the, actually not the series, we want to clear the first series. That first series dot clear. There we go. So clear that series. So there's no other values that have been added to it. And then we want to basically go, okay, with this chart, we want to, with the series 1 or the R, we want to add a value. What do we want to do? We want to add a value that says whatever the value is in the array. So we want to add that value, array values, at position. What position? Well, the first one. For the first category. And then we want to display the name of that category, which is what we get from this array category. So I'm going to say, okay, well, now we're going to say array category at position 1. If I spelled it correctly. At position 1. And then what color do we want? Well, we want the color at position 1 of my array colors array colors at position 1. And that will do that for the first item, and then we need to do it for the second item, the third item, and the fourth. And the only thing that's changing is these 1s are becoming 2s, 3s. So we can actually just do this in a for loop that goes from 1 to 5. And we can go, okay, we can do this. Begin, end. This is the end of the for loop. So in this case, when r's are 1, do 1. When r's are 2, do 2. So we just change these to r. So it will do it 5 times, changing every time to the different values in the array, which change to the different labels in the categories to change to the different colors that we just specified over there. So we can do that, and let's have a run and see what it looks like. So it's going to go through the database, count basically how many times we see the word categories, count how many times we see the word input, and then chart a pie chart based on that. So let's try it out. Boom. So there we go. So there are 7 games, 7 inputs, 7 outputs, 9 storage, and 5 tablets, and they're charted quite nicely. What you could also do for the colors, just a little tip, what you could do for the colors, if you don't want to do like an array of colors, or if you don't know how many colors you're going to do, you can do an RGB random color. So RGB will generate a random color if you give it 3 different values from 0 to 255. So let's give it a random number from 255, 0 to 255, and then give it another random number from 255, and that way it'll generate just random numbers every time. And so in this case, we don't need the array of colors. It will just hopefully generate random numbers. It should generate at least 5 different ones. It shouldn't always be the same. The chances of getting the same ones, if there are so many possibilities, is highly unlikely. So if we run it like that, and you can see, they do random colors, and each time I click on it, you'll see the colors will be different. So there we go. So you can do something like that, which generates random numbers of colors. So there we go. So that's how you can do a pie chart connected with a database. And so you can see your different charts if you use. You could actually also use, by the way, if you use this technique here where we just added, you could do something like that for these ones as well. So instead of adding an XY, you could just add, for example, add a value, add some sort of whatever it is, game, for example, and then give it a color. You could use that, for example, in this one as well. Let's try that. I'm going to populate it ahead of time. So there we go. So with the line chart, as I said, I just used the add instead of the add XY. I just gave it a value. I gave it a particular type of text, and I just said use whatever the T color is, which is in this case it's the green one. I haven't done the other series. I've just left it blank, and so it'll probably just leave it blank. So let's go have a look. I went and brought it. There we go. So there's the chart. If I click on the populate line chart, it does everything from the line chart example we did earlier. But there you can see it shows you the values that it populates for game, input, output, and there's the labels that we just put over there. Okay, so you could use just the add if you want to do something like that. So you can use add or add XY. So there we go. So lots of examples of how to use a T-chart. I hope they are useful. We're going to do another video where we show you, those of you that know how to do SQL, how we can do some sort of grouping combined with a T-chart, and that could be quite exciting. So go check that video out. For more tips that can help you with your PAT, go to our YouTube channel, click on that subscribe button, go to the playlist, find the IT PATs and tips playlist that can give you all the examples you need for your PAT. And remember, don't do it the long way, do it the Mr. Long way.